Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about Wormsign for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. So what is Wormsign for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition? Well, it has to do with the new Dune movie, and what it is an exploration of the dangers that are coming for Dungeons & Dragons, and a discussion about the dangers that are coming that seek to consume and destroy Dungeons and Dragons from the perspective of the story of Dune, and specifically one scene within Dune, the new Dune 2020 Denis Villeneuve, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya film. Okay, all right. So first of all, let's get it all the way there. Spoilers for Dune 2021. All right. So there's this beautiful, beautiful scene in Dune that I am just gaga over Dune. I've watched it 4 times. I saw it opening night on IMAX. I immediately the next day watched it alone on my phone throughout the day. Just like doing tasks and watching here and there, and a much interrupted viewing. On my phone for HBO Max. I then sat down and watched it on my big screen through HBO Max. I have HBO Max for free, so I'm able to watch the film. And then I sat down and watched it with my wife, and I couldn't believe she was willing to watch Dune, because she's not really a big genre person, right? Like, her favorite thing in the world when it comes to the art that she consumes is Pride and Prejudice, and she reads. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's an entire community who rewrite Pride and Prejudice or do Pride and Prejudice askew material, and so she reads a lot of that, right? So it's sci-fi ain't her jam, right? But she's like, hey, I'll watch Dune with you, because I guess I won't shut up about it. I'll talk to anybody I can about Dune, because I'm just so. So why is Dune 2021 so important, and why am I just like so gaga over it? Well, the biggest thing is I think it's Star Wars for adults, right? Like, Star Wars, I was 7 years old when I saw Star Wars, and it just 100% captured my heart, right? And I've seen every single Star Wars movie on opening night in theaters in America, and I'm just incredibly fortunate to have done that. And I love Star Wars. But when I look at Dune, I'm like, holy cows. It's like they made Dune for adults. It's like it's like they made Star Wars for adults. It's like graduating from a Lunchable to like a real meal, made at like Outback Steakhouse. Like, you got to use your knife and cut it, and you got to be careful as you eat, and it's important. Like, I'm just absolutely blown away with it. It's really incredible film. I think it's a really important historical moment. Right now, we're in this really tender, very tenuous space in America where, like, are we about to lose the movie industry, the movie theater industry, which we've had for a century? And people are like, yeah, it looks like it, right? And we're like, okay, well, maybe Dune's the last awesome film that's ever going to get made, like. And I'll give you your comment before you. Scott, there's movies on small screen. Nobody's going to spend $200 million to splat another movie out on a streamer that's going to get 48 hours of attention, right? Movies play for weeks or months, right, in theaters. And so the loss of the big screen is a major cultural impact, okay? So Dune is absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about this probably one of the best scenes in Dune by far, Dune 2021. So at this point, Paul Atreides and Leto Atreides have come from Caladan, and they're now on Arrakis, right? And so Duke Leto Atreides brings Paul along. He brings Gurney Halleck, and he brings Dr. Liet Kynes, okay? And they all go up in a Thopter, okay? That's a very dope, like, tactical flying vessel, right? That very, very cool tactical flying vessel that is specifically flies like a dragonfly, which is pretty cool. Like, that it actually flies like a dragonfly. That's pretty amazing. So they all pack together in, and they have, I think they have like they have 2 other thopters with them. Excuse me. And so basically, they have these thopters there, and so basically they go out to watch a harvester. A harvester is a gigantic spice harvesting machine. It pulls spice literally from the sand of Arrakis. It's gigantic. It's as big as like a city block. It's really large. It's immense. Okay, and so it's this, and it goes in, and so basically, these harvesters are lifted by carryalls. So carryalls are hovering flying vessels, right? Then what they do is they hover over a carryall, and then they shoot 4 anchors down onto the carryall to lift it, and then they shoot out 4 gigantic balloons that are filled with like lighter than air material that lift the harvester. So the carryall lifts the harvester. Okay, then it drops it into the desert. Okay, and there are 3 fates for a harvester that's been dropped into the desert. It uses all of its fuel. The first one is very good. It uses all of its fuel. It ranges as far as it can, and it flawlessly harvests as much spice as it can possibly harvest, right? And it comes back full, right? It's full to capacity, right? That's one fate for a harvester. A second fate is it goes out, it begins its rhythmic, and the only way that the first fate happens is if there's no worms that are even remotely that are in the vicinity, okay, or they're very far out, okay. The second fate for a harvester is the harvester goes out, and it actually is. Oh yeah, okay. So the second fate is it goes out and it begins its rhythmic thumping, which is used to draw. It's actually drawing spice out of the ground, which creates a rhythmic thumping, and that rhythmic thumping calls forward the main predator on Arrakis, which is a 400-foot worm. 400-yard, a 1,200-foot. They actually go to 1,400 feet. So a 1,400-foot, quarter-mile worm that can easily consume the entire harvester, right? Now, what is this 1,400-foot worm? What is this quarter-mile worm, right? It is Shai Hulud, right? So Shai Hulud, so the second fate is Shai Hulud. Here's the thumping of the harvester, comes, right? And Shai Hulud does not eat the harvester, right? But the carryall, so Wormsign is identified, right, by the crew. They say, oh, hey, we see, the sand moving like the ocean, right? That's Wormsign, right? And then they call the carryall. The carryall comes out, attaches to the harvester, and the harvester is safely lifted out, and Shai Hulud breaches the surface and chomps down on nothing, right? And the harvester goes back without a full load, okay? The third fate of the harvester is the worm sees here's the harvester. The crew never sees the Wormsign, and Shai Hulud consumes the harvester. 3 fates, okay? Now, what I want to talk about is the 3 fates of Dungeons & Dragons today. Right now, 5th edition is fate number 1 for the harvester. It is a full load. Boy, oh boy. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has succeeded at a level absolutely no edition has ever succeeded, right? It has reached more people through streaming than it was ever able to reach in the 90s, right? It has sold video games. It has, it has shows that are going on to Amazon that are adjacent to it, right? It has created books that surpass anything created in any edition of the game ever. Full, gorgeous, beautiful, 100% art, right? maybe you could say that the third edition books were comparable, but that old dirt black and white, forget it. Those books are just not comparable. From edition 1 and 2, actually, Dungeons & Dragons has been full art every page of every book for 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition. Now, clearly, 4th edition does not compare to 5th edition. Everybody hated it at the macro level. And 3rd edition, yeah, Wayne Reynolds is in there. It's pretty dope. But I think the 5th edition books have just massively surpassed 3rd edition and 1st and 2nd edition because they were just crammed up, copy type and a bunch of crap black and white art. They don't really compare at all. So they've surpassed from the product quality, right? In addition to that, Dungeons & Dragons now is very much involved in the cultural discussion of America. I apologize for mentioning this again. I'm really taken with this new show, Southside Chicago. I'm watching a show called Southside Chicago, which is about IRL, which is about contemporary Southside Chicago, right? It's about struggles of people in the inner city. It's about Chicago. It's about police, right? There's no reason Dungeons & Dragons should be mentioned in this show. It is mentioned in the show in season 1, right? Dungeons & Dragons is everywhere. It's part of the conversation in America. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is part of the conversation of America as a cultural force. It's incredible, right? So basically, Dungeons & Dragons is in place, and you have these fates. So right now, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the third fate, is the first fate. It is the first fate. It is the harvester going out, drawing up spice from the ground and coming back with a full load. And get this, right? Dungeons & Dragons came out Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition came out in 2014, right? We're already told that in 2022 we're going to get a new version of Dungeons & Dragons that will not be 6th edition. A lot of people are calling it Dungeons & Dragons 5.5. I don't think they're ever going to put 5.5 on the cover. They did put 3.5 on the cover. I don't think you're ever going to see that again, right? But this thing is coming back with a full load. Now let's talk about those other two fates. So let's talk about the third fate. Is it possible for Dungeons & Dragons to disappear, right? The answer is yes, but I'm going to tell you the percentage chance. So one, intellectual properties very much do disappear, right? Perfect example, this is Battlestar Galactica. That intellectual property is dead. Nobody cares about it now. There's no active show. People are not talking about it. It's done. Finished, right? Star Trek, that's not the case. Star Wars, that's not the case. Harry Potter, that's not the case. Harry Potter is dying fast. And Harry Potter is the strongest proof that Dungeons & Dragons could disappear forever. It's the strongest proof that a global intellectual property can disappear almost overnight, right? And I'll tell you right now, J.K. Rowling is working hard to bury Harry Potter in the ground and make sure nobody remembers it 10 years from now, right? So that's a thing, right? A very real thing. So just be aware of that. So it is absolutely possible for Dungeons & Dragons to disappear forever, to be consumed by the worm that comes to take Dungeons & Dragons. Now, what is the worm that comes to take Dungeons & Dragons? It's these problems that can come up, right? Cancel culture is what came for Harry Potter. There are other worms that can come for Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not even going to talk about the different types of problems that could consume Dungeons & Dragons. Just trust and believe there's at least 3, okay? And I just want to talk about these. I want to finish this discussion of the fate, okay? So what is the possibility that Dungeons & Dragons could disappear forever within the next 20 years? About 1%. There's a 99% chance that Dungeons & Dragons will always be safe. And the reason why is Dungeons & Dragons has done with what Survivor IPs need to do. It has broken itself off from its creator, right? It transitioned from the hands of Gary Gygax in 1986 to the hands of its second greatest guardian, Lorraine Williams, in 1986. Okay, it has also broken itself off from. It has out-survived its creator. That's the problem with Harry Potter, is it's not out-surviving its creator, right? Its creator is literally killing it, right? And so that's where Harry Potter is right now. And that can't happen with Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons is bigger than its creator. It's surpassed Gary Gygax. Okay, it also has surpassed companies. It's saying Dungeons and Dragons is bigger than your company. Dungeons and Dragons is bigger than Hasbro. Right? Hasbro can say we don't want Dungeons and Dragons. They will never shut it down. They will sell it. Right? The value of Dungeons and Dragons is so high that it will always behoove the owner to consider selling it, and there will always be a buyer, right? So there is only a 1% chance that Dungeons and Dragons can be consumed, that Shai-Hulud can get its toothy maw around it and pull it into the desert and kill it inside its belly, right? That there's only a 1% chance of that, right? Whereas like there's about a 50-50 chance 10 years from now Harry Potter will no one even know what the name means. No one will remember it, right? So at the macro level. All right. So what is that middle one, right? And this is very real for Dungeons and Dragons. The harvester goes out. The harvester is put onto the ground. It starts bringing up the spice, right? And then it's disrupted. The carryall has to come and pick it up and move it. And that is a company move. And that is a very distinct possibility. There's been a lot of discussion that Hasbro is positioning Dungeons & Dragons for a sale. And that means that it comes back without a full, that basically, that it's picked up and it has to be brought, actually that it would be picked up without a full load, right? And that it would be disrupted. It comes back with half full of spice, not full of spice, right? And it's disrupted and it's out of circulation and it is significantly reduced in activity, right? This is very real, right? So if Dungeons and Dragons were sold to another company, if Dungeons and Dragons were sold to some Silicon Valley millionaire, awesome, no problem, right? But what are some major disruptions that could happen to Dungeons and Dragons? Biggest disruption I foresee, the Shai-Hulud who comes to disrupt Dungeons and Dragons, right? The one that haunts me, right, is an international owner for Dungeons and Dragons. I believe that Dungeons and Dragons is American. It is an element of Americana. Coca-Cola is American. Baseball is American. Skateboarding is American, right? These are American creations, and they resonate with the red, white, and blue, bald eagle energy of America today. And we need a statue of Gary Gygax in Lake Geneva that's larger than the Statue of Liberty. That's baller American spirit for Dungeons and Dragons, right? So, with all that said, if like Dungeons and Dragons were sold to France, right? I'm not sure Dungeons and Dragons remains as it will take a massive hit in coolness, right? Just because like you're going to get a French perspective, and Dungeons and Dragons wasn't born in France, right? And I'm not sure that French creators are going to understand the energy of this American game, right? So that would be the worm coming for Dungeons and Dragons. So I really think its biggest threat right now is an international buyer, right? Because I just don't have any confidence that international buyers will understand the energy of Dungeons and Dragons. That's the 3 states of Dungeons and Dragons explained through the carry-all harvester scene of Dungeons and Dragons 2021. Did you see Dune? Are you as amazed with this film as I am? Did I miss a fate? Right? Did I get the correct? Dungeons and Dragons, the game, is the harvester. The carry-all is another company coming to rescue it if it is sold. Do you see was there any parts of the analogy I got wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a very wonderful millennium.